Alright, so I've been having a real tough time with bushings right now. My baby is about to get new suspension, and unfortunately, when I was taking off the 4-link bolts on the other side, I had to cut them. They were stuck in the bushings. So because of that, I had to replace them, and replacements don't come cheap unless you go with Prothane. So even though I didn't want to do the energy suspension bushings, here I am, because Mazda Tricks only sell the links themselves with bushings pre-installed, and they want like $3,000 for all that crap. So I took them off and I cleaned them up, got all the rust off, and just painted them real quick with some caliper painting just to protect them. And I've been trying to find good ways to get these bushings off, and I found it. So I use my turbo torch with some MAP gas. And I just start at one side, and it helps me gauge the heat by when the paint starts to bubble. This stuff's 900 degrees. So when that paint starts to bubble, I know I'm probably boiling bushing in there. And it takes a little while, but I just move the whole way around. Uh-oh, overheating myself. Whoop. I etched these front and top to make reassembly the same. The service manual says they were marked with white paint, but that had since rusted away. So I start with this. This will take a little while. You can see the speed I'm going. It's about the speed you need to go. And get the whole thing real hot. And you can tell, you'll watch the edge here, and you'll see it start to boil. There's a little boil action in there. That means it's hot enough. That means it's come loose. Basically, it's loose from the steel. And then I go back and I cut one side of this overlap off with a razor blade, and then I push it out the other way, just with a bolt or anything. We'll come back to that, but that's how I do it. I've got it nice and hot. And I might have gotten it a little hotter than normal, but I go in and it makes it a lot easier to get a blade in there. And I just start working this blade around, right? So that's how you do it. It's hard to do with this camera in my hand, but and my vise is moving. But basically, yeah, I'm gonna cut around the whole thing, and then I'll plunge this in, and I'll cut around this, and then I just use some needle nose pliers and I'll peel this off. Needle nose pliers, obviously, because this stuff is burning hot. Throw it away. Very sticky too. Out there. Get up. Oh. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, so Energy Suspension provided instructions with these bushings, and it said, you know, cut this off. Well, it's easier said than done, and it's easier done if you get it real hot first. So that's what I did, and that's what worked. Ugh. There, see, most of it's gone now. And before this, I used a puller and hooked it up to it, and I pushed this thing out about halfway from the other side, and it was not going to come out with the puller. It was just impossible. That's what you're left with. One side's got it, one side doesn't. Hopefully this works. I just used the bolt that came off, and I guess I could thread it on a little bit more to give it a guide. But I just stuck it in there, then pushed. And I'm just using my hand, but it's so hot. It's just, I mean, I'm not pushing hard either. I'm just, boop. Goodbye, old bushing. And that's it, man. That's how you do it. So, at this point, there's still a little bit of rubber residue left inside. And for that, I've just been using this 80 grit Dremel attachment I got off Amazon. and it cleans them up real good, and they wind up looking like that. So the next step is putting the bushings in, and I already test fit these things and they go in real tight, but you can do it by hand basically. They're tight, but they're not impossible. Oh yeah, before I forget, you want to wipe these out after you get your bushing out, because you'll gum up your Dremel bit or whatever you're going to use to get the rest of the rubber out. I just did that, and that calls me to remember. So yeah, make sure you wipe it out. I use something, it's like more of a solvent. It really helps, but it's whenever you're dealing with stuck bolts and crap, this liquid wrench penetrating oil smells terrible. But in my opinion, it actually works better than plaster. And it also degreases really well, which is crazy. So, I mean, I have blaster, don't get me wrong, but this stuff, man, it just takes the cake. It really does. I found that while I've been going through and restoring this car, it's one of the last things I have to do, but I've found that this dissolves damn near everything, and this stuff's really handy too, fluid film. Really handy. If you gotta like de-rust a bolt that you can't replace or something like that, you know, and you strip all the finish off of it, that'll keep it from corroding and rusting. I mean, that's what I had to do with these. The stud was not supposed to come out, but it did because it was rusted together. So I dropped these in some Rust-Oleum rust remover, which is really harsh, and they haven't flash rusted because as soon as I got them out, I just soaked them in some fluid film. Yeah, they're gonna hate me. There's terrible focus, but yeah, all of them. You know, took the finish completely off, cleaned them up with the tap, well, a dye, and then they're ready to go back on with the sway bar, which is good and ready. Now I just got to finish getting the rust off of that joker, refinish that, and slap it all back in. Easy, right?